Hello, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Fireside Chat with Binura. I think some of them always already know Binura, who is Binura. But before going forward, I will going to introduce him. So he's a lead game designer and developer at Motion Miracles. Also, he actually avid gamer, and he also part of our Sri Lanka Unity Developers user group. He was kind of a speaker and working with us, and he helped actually to organize the first ever global game jam in Sri Lanka. So we had it in Motivator's office. Yeah, that's cool. So Vinod, how are you?
Hey, going good. Thanks for having me here, Chatu. Hope things are going fast and steady with everything going on in the world. But I'm pretty sure you're handling stuff well as usual.
Yeah, so this is our second online global game jam. So yeah, kind of doing well these days.
Nice.
And yeah,
Pretty
I
excited.
forgot to mention that he actually created a game called Tie and Die, and it actually hit and smashed the Apple store. So
Yeah. Oh,
that's cool.
funny to think it's been
Congratulations.
all. Thank you very much. So yeah, interesting times that was.
So yeah, so I'll give you a brief idea of what we're going to do today. So we are going to actually have an interview kind of a thing, the fireside chat with you to actually help the new developers who plan to join game development industry, designers or anything who want to join the game development industry. So let's talk about your experience and your journey. So they will it's kind of a beneficial for them to learn. So
Okay.
how you actually got interested into the game development or game first gaming? Let's see.
I mean, interesting. So because I'll have to date back to a time where I wasn't even schooling to
Oh,
talk about this. So I wasn't even going to school when I started playing games, and I've been really into it ever since. Like I remember like playing all these old games like Dangerous Dave, bit of Doom. I
oh,
wasn't a fan of Doom. Hated that game, to be honest. It gave me a headache. But like all these like even like 3D games like Harry Potter, like these were like early days, and like that just really fascinated me. Like I couldn't even get past the first challenge in some of those games, but I would just keep replaying it, looking around, trying to like figure out what's going on. And like it was like really amusing at right before I was starting. And like even I remember like back when I was in like grade one back in school, I wanted to make games. Like even
yeah.
right from the start. So yeah,
So
playing
even
games.
before you
Yeah.
join in the Phoenix Gaming?
Way before, like Phoenix Gaming was, I joined Phoenix Gaming as a time during a time I was just in university and like studying. So way
Oh,
before that, I was into game development.
yeah. But I thought that you actually switched to careers later, but seems like you are actually into it before than that.
Oh no no no! I was actually making games when since I was like 9 or 10 years old. Like Game Maker back then. I wonder if you remember.
Yeah.
So I got my hands on Game Maker back then, and I didn't know what to do. But I was just like messing around with it, trying to like add these like all these pre-mapped functions, trying to see what happens. And yeah, like I used to make game like 2D, even like a bit of 3D games just by messing around.
Oh, cool. So
Yeah.
what makes you actually into game development rather than gaming? You can actually play the games anyway.
So I think it's a completely different sensation because like playing games was always fun, like true, but there was something always about like how is this made, like how are these things coming together that made me really curious right from back
The
then.
curious.
And like yeah, like I remember like back then seeing that logo of like EA Games and EA Sports. Like remember back then EA Sports,
Yeah.
challenge, like all those stuff. Like when
Yeah.
I saw that, oh, like people make games. That's so
Challenge
cool. Like I
everything.
was, yeah, challenging everything like to the game, all those stuff. Like when I saw this back then, like I was like, oh damn, there are like these people who make games. That's like way cooler than you playing a game. So like I always found that interesting. Like what if I can change the map? Like what if I can change the enemies, obstacles? That becomes your own thing then. So those are the type of things that like more than playing, it really like amused me to see what's behind it. Like how do these come together?
Yeah. How you actually become a lead game designer or game developer? How was that thing happen?
You're a part of it, if you remember. Like so I was right.
No.
I know it's odd, but like right since I was small, like I kind of like had this idea that I want to get in the gaming industry, not to be a doctor, not to be an engineer, no way, none of those. not to be an
You are
artist.
from a kind of a background from a doctors, right?
Yeah, my dad's a doctor. So that's there. But like, I mean, they've been super supportive. They've always been like encouraging me, supporting however they could to push me towards what I wanted to do, and that was making games. So that's like right. Even getting exposed to Game Maker, I don't really know how I got the software, but I'm pretty sure it's someone gave it. Right, so maybe my dad helped me find it. So yeah, they've been supportive, and I was making games, right? Just by myself. I didn't know about the industry, or there was not much of an industry here to begin with. But I was always making games because I loved it, because of the passion I had. I would any day skip school just to stay home and make a game or play a game, just games in general. So, but like that just went on. Like I went from like making 2D games in Game Maker to like 3D games in Unity, touching Unreal Engine and all that. So by the time there was a bit of a meetup, like the one you organized, the Unity Developers meetup, I was there, and people kind of knew me as a person who makes games before even like started working or anything. And I remember Chatu just spontaneously asked me to come and talk in front of people. And
Yeah, I actually
when you're
know you because of the README. So we had a kind
right,
of a relationship at that time because of the README. So you were actually
exactly.
writing articles about gaming actually.
Gaming mostly. Yeah, so
Yeah,
the whole scope of gaming was something that was like really that I find interesting. But yeah, like when you're being in something, like when you're passionate about something, call it anything, maybe it's a sport, it could be cooking or whatever. When you're put in a spot randomly to talk about something you're passionate about, you're just naturally gonna start like expressing yourself, the things that you really have in you. And that's kind of what happened at the Unity meetup. And over there I met Anish and Shanil, the guys I started working for afterwards, after about 1 year. So I joined Motion Miracles in 2018, I think. It's been a while now. Started off just as like a person in the game development team, but slowly, like progressively, I how to say it's not that we have a hierarchical system per se. Like everyone kind of has an equal opportunity, but the way the team was going and like the contribution I was giving, within about 1 year's time, I became the lead game designer in the studio. That's when we started working with all these foreign publishers like Voodoo Games and Lion Studios. So I pretty much took the lead for the team and took them to international publishers then.
yeah. How about this approaching this and working with these international publishers make you
Oh boy. So
oh
this is
that
where the fun stuff starts, right? You can make games, like I've been making games as well. Everyone here can make games, but it's only like you always know, like, I don't know where I stand in the industry. How can I even enter the industry? Like, there's a lot of questions and a lot of doubt, especially because in Sri Lanka there is no benchmark for us to see where we are. So the moment we started working with Voodoo Games, I mean, imagine you go from nothing, just making your own games, and suddenly the number one publisher is on a live face-to-face video call with you, and you're like,
yeah.
huh, intimidating. But when we started working, it was evident that we were doing something right. I remember pitching my first set of games to them, and they actually liked one of them to move forward. So from there onwards, we were working with them for about a good 1.5 years to 2 years. So I worked with Voodoo and Lion Studios within that time, two of the top three publishers. Um, the experience is like, imagine you see thousands of games coming into the Play Store, right? Every like App Store, Play Store, every single day. You're competing with each and every one of them from everywhere around the world, may it be USA, UK, China, Japan. You don't know who you're competing with, but you have to reach that top 1% of the games that are coming out every day to be able to stand among the top with those publishers. And it's a challenge every day. You you would need to think about every element throughout the day. It's kind of like you're nourishing a product all day.
Challenges keep you these kind of challenges that you keep you going.
Keep you going, and you can see when you're failing, because when you're putting out these hyper
Yeah,
casual games, there are metrics that you need to hit. You need to see people downloading your game, you need to see them coming back to your game, and
and being
90%
retaining
of
in
the
there.
time retaining in the game, 90% of the time people who download your game and play it once won't play it a second time. And that's the market norm. If you can't even get 45 people, 50 people out of 100 people who's downloading the game, your game's not really going to make it there. So
Yeah.
That's the industry. It's always a challenge, and like that's really, really thrilling for us to know that we are actually competing among the best.
So we are going back again to past. So if a new person who actually, and apart from that, we got a comment from one of our participant who was there in your first meetup. So Prabhu
Okay,
actually commented that saying it's the first Unity meetup, and he was actually did this kind of a video there. And I
I
remember
remember
I
Prabhu
asked
though.
you to come and suddenly, I just
Yeah,
asked you suddenly come forward and do a kind of a small session, and yeah, that's a sport one.
yeah, I
So
definitely remember Prabhu. Hope you're doing well, man.
So how about opportunities compared when you started the game into game development and today? If the people who are
Crazy,
going to join,
crazy high. So, I would say even like date back to about 3 years ago, we didn't have these many opportunities. Right now, any individual or a group of two friends can just get two computers, start making a game, and start making more money. Like start working towards making millions of dollars just by staying home. It's that simple. I know there's like people who think we need a team of 20 people or like 10 people, make up like 5 year commitments to make a game that might have a chance at getting $1 million. That's completely unnecessary. You just need a very simple game idea and a game with a publisher. These publishers are always looking forward for miniature development teams like us. As long as you're like committed towards it and like you just like work towards putting in the best products you can while learning in it, 2 weeks is all you need and you could be a millionaire. It's that accessible
yeah,
now to anywhere. If I like was to give a few examples, like Voodoo Games, they have more than about 50 games made by just one solo developer. The game art, game design, game development, everything by one person under 1 month, and they are
oh,
millionaires. Like unbelievable. You don't need huge teams or anything to get into the industry now. It's really good.
yeah, it's kind of like when you do this kind of stuff and you got and kind of money out of it, and it's kind of an investment for your next big game maybe.
Exactly. I mean, it's almost suicidal for us to think we can make a big game when we haven't even made a small game. Like it could work, could, but if you think about it statistically, the chances of you putting years of work into one product that might or might not work is way too much of a risk. So imagine only putting about 1 or 2 weeks worth of effort and making about 50 games. You have a much higher chance of succeeding in a game, and we're talking about millions of dollars that will come in. And even while you work on those weeks for each new product, these publishers are so accessible that they will even fund you for the work you're doing. So
Ah, that's cool.
it's way more accessible now.
Yeah. So kind of another question. So how this COVID-19 situation hit the game development market? Does it make it high or it make it growing? How is it?
Eh, the industry is booming. Like when we started off, we were putting out games at like let's say a decent rate, and we were getting decent results. Now, if we put the same games at the same time frames, we'll get like really bad results, like one fourth of the results we got back then. Because when COVID started last year, March, like getting really bad, a lot of these solo developers started putting games out, started making their own studios.
Mm.
Now the market is extremely saturated, very accessible, but still super competitive than it was before.
And
So
I
in a
think
way, it's
audience
great.
also jumped up, right?
The audience also
Audience also
jumbled up.
jumped.
It also jumbled up a lot more people started getting invested into these small games as well. So the industry is booming. Unity went public. What more to say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as a last question, since we kind of getting it lengthy, and I'd like to have a long chat with us, but for the viewers who are going to watch it later, so we try to make it very shorter video so they can actually have a data saving. So the kind of last section, what are the kind of values that or the opportunities that brings to the developers attending kind of events and game jams or these kind of meetups? What do you think about that?
So that's a very broad question because there's a lot of types of events as well. So I would say the value that you're getting out of these sort of events is the industrial knowledge. Because if I was told 3 years ago there's a path like this where you can make games with these publishers, I would have saved about a good 1.5 years of my time getting to that knowledge. So those kind of like listening to industrial talks on like how people have done it right, and like what are like the common mistakes that people can try to avoid, they are the real values that I think you should hear out, instead of thinking, because we all started from one place. We all wanted to make games. We made a lot of mistakes. Don't make the mistakes that we already made. Like, might as well save the time. So there's a lot of value. I think you should spend a lot of time into more than enhancing your technical skills. I would really recommend listening to what the industry has to say, and what's the quickest way to get to where you want to go.
And yeah, like you met Anish in meetups, so likewise you will be getting kind of networking also.
Exactly. So it's mostly about the people you meet and the information you'll hear.
Yeah, that's cool. And thank you very much for joining us with short session. So you actually been with us for all the three global game jams. You was a kind of a co-organizer for the first one, and you had a session in second one. And this time we are trying to get you to the pre-jam session, but I think the kind of a health issues rises between us. And but I'm really happy to have you in kind of a fireside chat, even in the event also.
Thanks a lot for having me, Chatu. It's always been a great pleasure to join you across the
Yeah,
years.
and we are thinking that we will be able to host an event physically next year. Let's see, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. All right.
Okay, yeah, again, have a nice day and thank you very much.
Thanks, Chatu. Thanks for having me.
Good.
See you.
See you.